Welcome back
to another episode of the Innovate on Purpose podcast,
hosted by Matt Muller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation.
Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Hello and welcome to Innovate on Purpose podcast brought to you by The Mindful Innovator. My name is Matt Muller. I am your host here today. I'm a global innovation strategist and keynote speaker, speaking to retailers and CPG about how to identify, prioritize, and execute innovation. And today we have a very special guest, very important topic to talk about, which is how do you really move the business from a brick and mortar into an e-commerce, an omni-channel business. It's something that is so important for retailers to consider for growth, but yet we have a hard time approaching that subject and exactly how do we move forward with purpose, with practical innovation advice within that space. And Pratik Bajra here from Netcore, he's the CEO of Netcore, is going to talk to us about that today. He has 20 plus years of experience leading product and technology teams in the retail and e-commerce market space, and we are so pleased to have you here today. So Pratik, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Of course. I would like to kind of give like a high level, just kind of background on your 20-year experience leading those types of product and technology teams, and a little bit about what Netcore is doing.
Yeah, so I think quick background on me. I've been fairly big on the product and engineering side, trying to build more innovative MarTech products to market, primarily around retention marketing. So product discovery, when you're trying to figure out, when the shopper's trying to figure out, hey, what do I need to buy? How do I optimize that piece of it to eventually, how do I get them hooked to buying that product? And also how do you kind of get them to come back to the brand to buy more product? So that's kind of been the thesis space, and where I've been busy in the last couple of years, especially with Netcore, has been around how to extend that a little further. So with Netcore, think of us as two things that we do really, really well. One piece is on product discovery. So if shoppers are searching for something on that search bar that you have on your website, how do I get them to really look for what they're looking for, and then translating that, maybe a keyword search or a natural language thing they're looking for, into the products that you are actually selling as a brand. It's a thing that people don't realize, that a lot of discovery starts with the search. If you don't have really good search products empowering how they find the products, you are likely going to miss a lot of revenue there. So we are really good there. If you go to Mattress Firm, Children's Place, Express, Advanced Auto, those are all brands that are powering experiences through us. And we are Forrester and Gartner leaders there as well for the same reason. And similarly, the second thing that we do really, really well is our thesis has been, while one place is discovery, so being able to find the products that a shopper is looking for. But once they find it, if they have given you that attention moment, how do I get them to convert in channel? So we are really big in marketing and marketing automation as well. So we are also a Forrester strong performer there, where we've been able to showcase new ways to do things in channel, especially conversion in channel. And why that is important, I'll give a quick feedback playback as well. And this might be the kind of lead into the next piece of our conversation. There's a McKinsey stat and also a Google stat, which says that it takes now anywhere between 17 to 21 touch points for a shopper to go from product discovery to conversion. So if you just put that into context, that's 70 to 21 different ways your shopper can get distracted before they actually make a conversion decision. So you as a brand are now thinking, how do I reduce those number of touch points to actually get them to convert? And then you have a second stat, which is it takes about a shopper is giving you as a brand 5 to 7 seconds of attention. Probably even lesser if you're the younger segment, right? So now, again, as a brand, you're thinking, I already had the odds against me with this 17 touch points to conversion. Now I have to deal with 5 seconds to get somebody's attention and get them to take a next step. So how do you maximize the value of that touch point, right? Our playback was, if that's the thesis on shopper psychological dynamics, then can technology bridge the gap for brands to get shoppers to maximize the value of every brand touch point to the shopper and get them to convert in channel as much as possible?
Yeah, that's amazing stats. Like I did not know it was that many touch points. I thought it was like, maybe 5 or 10, but like wow, that is a lot of touch points to have with one individual customer to actually get them to convert. Why is it taking so many touch points to convert folks these days?
Yeah, I think the key highlight problem area is that there's too much choice, right? It's a great shopper problem to have, which means that, hey, we can go and find similar products in many places, which also has meant that brand loyalty, which used to be a big thing before, has dwindled a little bit over time. And then if you look at the likes of Shein or a Temu coming to market as well, they've changed even the price point at which the similar products were being bought. So now, if you have that level of choice in the market, then there's a lot more time spent on product discovery, maybe on Google search, now perhaps even on ChatGPT, right? Might be the first place you discover products. Or if you're the younger demo, then you're probably discovering products on TikTok or Instagram, and that becomes your lead into doing many different things. So when there are so many choices, it's not organic to necessarily see the brand's going to see the first touch point be on the brand, maybe the store itself, or even on the .com, right, where they might see an experience play out. So how does the shopper in the dynamics of they want to buy maybe a pair of, I don't know, blue jeans, right? But there's so many such brands trying to kind of cater to them. You go to Google Shopping, suddenly there's 1,000+ results related to that. And now a brand has to figure out, hey, pick me, right? So in that, there's a lot more money being paid on paid ads, which it's like an auction, right? It's only keep putting more money and eventually going to get in front of the customer. But that's also a big problem because now your CAC is likely going to be higher than LTV. So the shopper dynamics have kind of changed where there's too much choice. I think the typical logistical dynamics of a loyal shopper coming back has gone down a little bit. So question on how do you increase LTV with that loyalty? And you'll see a lot of brands kind of getting into loyalty programs. And there's also the third dynamic of most brands were relying on paid ads to drive more in-store or online traffic. But paid ads has also become so commoditized with so many people trying to play the same game. So now it's becoming more expensive versus what it was before. So is the cost of acquisition even worth it? Because your LTV might be lower than CAC. So does that even work, right? So I think it's an interesting dynamic playback. So brands have to do a lot of work around grabbing the attention of their existing customers. Hopefully that's one less touch point that the customer. So and then how do you kind of maximize them to have a good experience to then have hopefully a conversion or repeat conversions from them.
Yeah, really smart to think about your current consumers and how do you leverage that consumer base that you already have somewhat of their attention. They have, experience with your brand. Now, how do you add value and into each of those touch points along the way? So what do you do? Like what can retailers do to add value in those touch points rather than just, sending out a standard old email of, hey, we're here and we have this deal going on. Like, how can you add value?
Yeah, I think, again, like starting from the problem area, I think every retailer, especially which is Omni, which is probably most of them at this point of time, especially in the digital channels, the assumption should be, if I got you hooked as a shopper in the channel, be it website, email, whichever the channel might be, can I convert you in channel, right? So I think the thesis needs to be that. So typically a lot of work and maybe brain power goes into the website or an app if you had that. Meaning I get them to land, maybe they're on the search bar, maybe they're on the product page or product listing page. Now they are there. Now how do I entice them well enough with the right descriptions, the right social proofing, maybe the right offer to get them down to the next step? And a lot of work is done on funnel stage management there, right? So, which is where, we also play in that space, right, where a better search, really, really knowing the product data well enough and provides the right results to the shopper so they can do more. That's one channel, right? But you can similarly think about the same thing on other channels as well, which are not traditionally conversion channels. So if you look at Instagram and TikTok, that's kind of taught us a little bit as brands and also as vendors that you can convert in channel in those channels, right? Meaning Instagram, you do product discovery, there's click, now I'm buying in Instagram. Same thing in TikTok Shop. There's also the adage, right, where the people have talked about, hey, I discovered this on TikTok and I bought the product, right? Great, which is good. But in those channels, you don't have access to your data. Right? You are converting, you get the dollar top line, but you don't actually know, other than the unit of the product sold, you don't have much information about the customer because they, like Meta, as an example, is not sharing that data back to you. However, there's a traditional channel that we have kind of ignored, right? Which is email. If you talk to most retailers, they'll probably say email marketing as a revenue driver drives about 10% to maybe even upwards of 40% of revenue, meaning it originated there, it pushed traffic to the website, and then the website conversion funnels took over to kind of drive them down to conversion. But what if I told you that email also can be reimagined, right? So email, which has been around for what, 20 plus years for marketing. And let's be honest, most people have stopped even thinking about emails. Like, do what you were doing before. You might have added a segmentation strategy on top. You might have added a recommendation strategy there, but you're not doing anything more unique than that. However, what if I talked about email differently, where you reimagine email as a conversion channel, like your website, right? Because that could be another place where a ton of your existing customers or even your prospective customers are getting email from you. But what if you remove the friction and actually get them to, instead of going to the website, buy into the email? And that is actually possible. And this is something that many folks are still getting used to. But the traditional email is no longer, let's say, email anymore. Let's call that email 1.0. There's an email 2.0 that's been around now for the last 3 years. It's more adopted in APAC because that's where a lot of consumers, because the same brand attention and almost like the attention recession of sorts that shoppers were giving them, had to innovate and then realize that email can be a conversion funnel. And now we are bringing a lot of those things to North America and seeing some impressive results.
That is really just an intriguing topic right there, which is email. And yeah, it's been around for a quarter century. So it's like, you think about it, it's like it's set. This is the way it is, and then that's the way that we use it, and that's all there is to it, right? You just you send out the email, you put a link in it, and you hope they click on it, and that's pretty much it. But just to think about how might we do that differently, it sounds just so interesting. It's like a provocative question, like, because that's like where innovation usually comes from. It comes from just putting aside the previous notions of this is the way it is and thinking about how could it be. But I would love that you to explain. It's like, so how can you like really evolve something that is so lo-fi like email? Like, how are they doing that?
Yeah, so I'll set you up a little bit, and then I think we'll do a show versus a tell, right? So I think what's interesting in email is that you always think about curation of a set of products that your brand wants to offer, and that curation ideally is interesting enough for someone to click and go to the website. But the reality also is you curate, you spend a lot of time curating. And I think that's also the saddest part of this, that you have maybe merchant teams saying, promote this product because maybe people will like clicking on it. But the first thing people do is, when they are interested, they click, and nobody's going back and looking at that curation, right? So all that fun stuff that you did, all lost new product discovery when they go to the website, right? So how do we now truly leverage a channel which is working and do it differently? And I'll show you this versus me telling you this, where there's truly now a shoppable environment where you can now shop in email more than just trying to, just do the basic push to cart. And I'll show you this as a concept email playback.
So for you that are following along, just if you're listening to the podcast, we'll do our best to describe it. But for everyone that wants to see it, check it out on YouTube because this is a nice visual and pretty cool stuff. So Pratik, go ahead. Please.
Yeah, and I'll describe the email as well for the folks who are listening. Think of it as your typical abandoned cart email, right? So you have a set of hero products because those are the things that were carted. And then you have a set of recommendations, and then you're probably asking about a survey experience. What I'm actually showing is more of a functional email, like more prototype, but I'll also show some real world examples on how this can come to life. So for example, I was doing this for one of the brands, Solar Wave, kind of as a concept. And here's the search bar in the email. When was the last time you were able to search for something in your email? Probably never. You never thought about that you could do search in email. When was the last time you were able to add things to cart in your email? Probably also never. You see a set of recommendations and you said, hey, this is cool. I want to add that product recommendation. And as a part of clicking and knowing my click behavior, I'm actually getting a live stream of new recommendations to keep gauging my interest and then feeding me more products as a shopper for me to add that to cart as well. So driving more AOV in the playback, right? There's a playback in retail where we talk about first purchase profitability, meaning if I got your attention in that first and intent playback, I want to get you to purchase and purchase then, and at that point purchase, I'll get you more items as well, because I know you may never come back to me, right? You might be a one and done shopper. Let me give you more AOV, but how often can we get that to be actually happen versus waiting for the website transaction happen? And yes, one more thing, right? So there's a rating widget that you generally get in your emails. Review your experience. How was it? And let's be honest, unless you are super pissed off or truly happy, you're not clicking on that. And let's be honest also on the why, right? We are all also shoppers along with being vendors or brands. And the reason behind that is the click. You click, and especially in a mobile device, it takes you to a completely different context. But what if your ratings and review vendor could actually do that in the email, right? And you can actually even progressively profile without even leaving the context of email. This is where the opportunity lies, right? Meaning most people didn't even realize you could do a lot of these things in email, but you can. And we can see more things as well. This is Adore Me, which is a part of Victoria's Secret. They came and said for the VIPs, they want to get more product feedback, and they gave almost like a Tinder-like experience on here's a product, and now give me an experience where I can like or dislike the product to give feedback back to the brand on what that looks like. So in this scenario, visually, it's like, hey, I'm clicking, I don't like this, oh, I love this, right? So now as a shopper, you're giving live feedback to the brand saying, give me more of this experience. And when you do that, now you can actually get them to give you more products in that context. Another brand, which was a paint swatch company, which wanted to do more discovery online, but then had to go get them to the store so the store associate could figure out how the paint swatches would work for their home. They needed to book an appointment. How do you book appointments? Now you have to make them go back to the website. Here's a lead that just dropped off because you click and go back to the website and book an appointment. But what if you could book an appointment in the email without leaving the context of the email, right? So the whole conversion flow, which relied on having to go to the website, no longer needs to be that case, right? So if Instagram, TikTok shops have innovate taught us that shoppers are okay discovering and converting in those channels, what if our traditional channels of email, which is a cash cow, let's be honest, it's the cheapest channel that we have as a brand to promote more of our product, would that be a conversion funnel? And does that lead to better repeats and AOV drivers? And based on the evidence that we have so far, you can. And I think this is where the opportunity lies, especially in, let's call it email 2.0 world. And this is why even Forrester, gave us the kudos on, for the first time, at least as a company, Netcore is showing a new way to use email, right? Because that was so in the back burner doing its thing. Now you're actually thinking of it as a conversion channel and conversion driver versus what you would have thought traditionally as an increased site traffic kind of measure.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. And for people that can see it, will probably get it right away. For those that I can't see it, the way that I kind of describe it, it's like having the website or the app inside of your email or inside your inbox. Like you don't have to leave. It's removing a one touch point, one click, allowing you to engage much faster with your consumers. It's such a cool concept. It's like instead of bringing your customers to your website or driving there, you're bringing the website to them, which is so much more convenient. And it could be, I imagine, much more stickier.
Yeah, and it's necessity is what kind of pushes innovation boundaries. Mm-hmm. And if you think about when this actually all started, when we were kind of doing the rounds in Asia specifically, where there are billions of people trying to almost kind of, as a brand, you're trying to figure out how do I get in front of billions, right? We are at least it's millions, right? And there it's like, okay, when the problem is even more escalated and scale, there's no choice for both the brand side and the vendor side to innovate. And this became one of the key innovations to drive more interactive, more modes for brands to kind of work with their shoppers. In fact, some more creative versions were furniture, right? So obviously you're not buying furniture on email, right? You are trying to do discovery on email and get them to stores so they can look and feel the product before they buy. And also furniture is, high consideration. It's like super high numbers. You're buying maybe every few years. So how does a furniture brand keep their shopper engaged in that time, right? So people started doing things like Wordle, right? So that has nothing to do with the brand, but all you're doing is creating a habit for your shoppers to keep coming back, make them play Wordle, like the 11 a.m. email, not to show so the brand, but to play Wordle. And at the end of Wordle, you get a product to discover, right? And over time, it's almost kind of because it created a habit, it created some experience, goodness for the shopper, it created a connection between the brand and the shopper. Now, at the point of consideration, you are considering the brand, right? Because it has created that connection with you to at least get you engaged enough for a longer term LTV playback. So, I mean, obviously, it's easier when you think about apparel, which is like a little bit more of a lower consideration item, but it also works in higher consideration, all about creating almost like a superior brand to shopper experience or a connection, right? Where they feel that they can keep coming back. And in all honesty, also a cheaper way to do this as a brand, because if you think about paid ads, it's only the number is only keeping going up in the amount of money you're paying there. And the email, if anything, it's also honestly the opposite, right? It's like email costs are going down. So you're almost going to figure out, hey, if the cost, that's a better optimized channel, can I optimize on spend even further by actually making it a revenue?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I imagine it's a lot easier to convert someone that's already you have an email to already versus paying for new acquisition. So it makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things that you shared on your screen too was the Adore Me email, which basically you're looking at different pieces of apparel and saying, yes, I like, no, I don't like, to start to learn consumer preferences so you can actually even be more laser specific on the curation, which is like just super, super slick and smart.
Yep. And again, actually, there's one piece I think that's just interesting about that as well. I mean, even if I had to get extended a little further than getting product feedback, one thing that people should realize if they haven't already is that there's a lot of buzzwordiness around AI that's going on right now. And the AI buzzwordiness is around, okay, I'll make it easy for you to create segments, product recs, maybe even content, copywriting, right? Things that we have already heard of. But the real truth also is, and I think the more sophisticated retailers already know this, is that you can put any great AI model out there unless you are going to get better data enabling it to learn. You can put great AI, shit data, you're going to get garbage output as well, right? So a lot of work which is going in today with some of the sophisticated retailers, and it's going to be true for in moving forward as well, is that you have to work and pay more attention to your data. Meaning, what is the shopper doing with your product catalog? What are the connection points? What are they viewing? Maybe they have not bought anything yet. What are they viewing? What are they adding to cart? What are they purchasing? Those correlation points become very important, because if you don't have that base foundation, you can't go further. And one piece also where it extends itself even more, which also is very fascinating in the current state now, is trying to figure out, can AI actually get you to better product enrichment as well? And I can give you an example in how it plays out in search, right? So your product catalog likely is defined by some merchandiser or merchant there who's decided, like, yeah, this is defined by these 5 attributes. Somebody in SEO said, put these keywords in there, so the description has those keywords, but that doesn't lend itself to how people search for it, right? So what becomes interesting is that as a part of you giving 5 attributes, for really good search to work, that 5 attributes probably needs to be 50 attributes, right? And then you have to kind of decide, how does that 50 come in? Some making the human do more of that work, and some making AI kind of enrich that product catalog further to then actually really know that maybe I'm looking at that. Let's assume there was a stock image of a person with a shirt and a pair of pants, but the product being sold was just the shirt, right? But the reality is, hey, I'm looking at the pant too because I'm looking at the look, right, on what it looks like. But you could also sell the pant. But if the product catalog is not enriched enough to know these are correlated products, then you are actually missing out on being able to showcase more off of that, right? And so these become very interesting angles as well. So if you have better data, then you can actually power better AI enrichment. If you power better AI enrichment, and then you can also, beyond these conversion and channel moments, also actually provide them better products that the shopper will likely want to buy, right? So cut to the chase, give them what they are looking for. Ideally, with this product feedback, so the example on the Adore Me like, dislike, that's more directed shopper feedback, but also just on implicit signals, right? I'm viewing something, adding to cart, looking at a product category. This is implicit signal saying, I
All the
probably
data
am
points.
interested in that, right? Can I use the signals even better to then inform any channel experience?
Yeah, that's a really great insight. Just all those data points. If you have all that information coming in, it makes total sense to use them, and AI is definitely a great way to start to make sense of all the information, because there is just too much information, to be able to digest all of that. So it makes a lot of sense. We went over a couple of different examples of the email marketing with with high tech, I would say hi-fi email. Like, can you give us like what has been like Netcore's like best case study or example of a client, and what are some of like the results they're seeing?
Yeah, I think in fact, the more not obvious thing is everyone wants more data about their customers, about the shoppers, which is translated typically today, at least in North America, to quizzes. So if you notice, a lot of retail brands are now doing quizzes on the website. So correlated also to what we are seeing in email, a lot more brands are actually asking, can I get more information about what the shopper actually wants from us, right? Whether it's product category preferences, whether it's the types of product they're looking for, obviously feedback loops, right? Hey, how was this experience for you as a shopper, so I can give you more. So the typical, in fact, I would say 50% of the use cases is give me more data about my shopper. And then the next few after that are a lot more around gamifying them to get into a conversion moment. So whether it's like a quiz to discovery to conversion, the cart use cases that we've seen, like 2x cart recovery. Abandoned cart emails are already amazing for getting the conversions to kind of play out. Now imagine if you can potentially 2x that, right? What does that word look like to you, right? Because then, in a way, high intent, high conversion funnel, and now easier, or rather would say reduce friction and easier path to checkout. Would I do things faster? I mean, logically also seems right, but practically also that's how it translates as well. So those are like the two kind of areas. One is give me more information about my shopper, so more zero-party data collection, but also now that I have this, and now enabling a gamified experience or an existing trigger funnel experience to get them to conversion. Conversion meaning add to cart, checkout faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned I think a key word there, which is like that friction, right? Just removing the friction from the experience. So that's like kind of where I like to go next with this, is like, so thinking about like frictionless experiences, you're definitely at Netcore taking care of a lot of the friction that's happening in the e-commerce space by streamlining and making things a lot easier through email with with the carts, the website right there, like almost like an app experience. What is next? Like, how are we going to be able to even like remove more friction from this? If we had to think about the retail industry in the next like 5 years, like what are we looking at?
Yeah, I think so. One, maybe I see it in like almost two horizons, right? The first horizon being, how do I get more marketing efficiency to enable better shopper efficiency? Right? So when I mean by that is use your data or superpower your data to enable these frictionless experience in channel. So better search, so better data, better search to conversion in email. If you're an app, same thing, search to conversion in email, conversion in channel, my on the web or app, and also an email, new paradigm. I mean, this is also, by the way, not extremely unique to us. While we've kind of created a huge application space, in theory, retailers can also look into their own platforms and say, hey, can you do this for me? Right. And so the idea being I would maybe challenge the narrative of the status quo today and see if you can already build a better experience with the tools you have. Right. If not, then of course we are there to help. That's a secondary piece of it. So that's one horizon, right? So almost like complementing existing methodologies and maybe incrementally getting a step function on how you can get a better experience to better conversions. The second horizon I see is where I think truly can enable a different experience. And I'll take you a little bit back to the mindset of maybe a Monday morning business meeting, right? So in a Monday morning business meeting, what was happening in retail, right? So you're looking at, here's my comp, quarter over quarter, day over day, today versus last year's same day. You've already figured out strategy for, here's my revenue, here's my margin that I want to meet for the quarter. And Monday morning, you're trying to figure out what's the plan for the week, what happened last week, how are we adjusting to that? And let's be honest, that meeting effectively while it's Monday morning also kind of extends itself to, as merchants, marketers, data people, digital people all together, but then extends itself to the next day, and so on, trying to figure out how we do in the morning, how we do at the end of the day, right? And you're trying to adjust the sales. But this is a lot of human-led conversations, and you're using a lot more of that human brain power to figure out how far can you tackle some scenarios almost like live, some with experience, some with data, to take a next action. Next action typically ends up being, let's sell through this product so I can get top line to work out, but I'm going to hit margin. So I'm going to figure out a high margin sale somewhere so that I can make up for that. So now let's reimagine the world slightly differently, right? Where today, if I had good data, meaning I have all the purchase data that I have in store, online, and so on. I also have data on the shopper with the products that they are trying to buy. And today, a marketer, a merchandiser is trying to figure out the right mix to enable these end outcomes on revenue and margin. What if I could actually train the AI to say, let's call it a VIP segment for lack of a better phrase, right? Here's a VIP persona I've come up with because they are defined by maybe they've bought the product X number of times, they're in a certain demographic category, or however you're defining a persona, right? So that has led the marketer to kind of say, here's how I'm going to market them on these channels, and this is my strategy. But what if we could actually create a twin, a digital twin of sorts, and ask the persona itself to say, look, educate yourself with the data that you have for how people in this segment have interacted with the brand, all the way from viewing, adding to cart to eventually conversions and repeat purchases, but also take in social behavior. So meaning there's like all of Google searches data is technically available online. There's also a huge data set on persona mapping. So you actually see the same persona, how are they actually doing online? Because that's effectively how Google and Meta does, lookalike audiences. What if I create a digital twin and actually ask them the question saying, hey, VIP segment, what should I market you this week? Right. And here's what I'm thinking, because that's the strategy that you came up with in the Monday morning business meeting. Here are my tactics. What likely conversions do you think is this going to drive? Or what else should I sell you? Right. Which you may be interested in. Now, this feels like a little like out there as an idea, right? Because like, do I trust it? Do I not trust it? But even if you don't trust it, let's start from the pessimistic point of view, right? I don't trust this data. However, even if you don't trust it, you just got 10 more ideas to potentially scenario plan on, right? And then you can try it. Now, ideally, over time, as you trust it, perhaps those are 10 ideas you can action on immediately versus at least trying to figure out which one's going to map to not map. I think that's where I see the bigger play. In fact, where I'm trying to get at is that the good news is data is no longer as disconnected as it used to be, which means that data can be brought together both structured and unstructured. The also better news is that at least the way, at least some of the AI strategies have come in, and they call it the agentic AI revolution, it's become easier for these AI models to train on structured and unstructured data. What used to take months and data science and engineering org, you no longer need that. A lot of the stuff is coming out of the box very quickly. So even if I remove the noise on technology and all that stuff where it feels very techy, right? Feels like you need a lot of IT people. Let's say it didn't need that many IT people. But what if you imagine that scenario? You can actually go into Monday morning business meeting and say, here's our tactics, and here's our segment twin, like, VIP twin, saying we should be running these use cases. What could that world look like? Because I think that's where I see a higher efficiency playback, where the next horizon for me, especially with how easy it's become to remove friction from even these type of tactical maneuvers, and it's reliant on actual shopper signal, both on-site and off-site, to enable at least more scenario playbacks versus what you had before. And like I said, don't start with trust, right? Start with, hey, generate more ideas and see how you can scenario plan your way to success. I think that's where I see a lot more opportunity. And this is also, by the way, not like a pipe dream. This is real. You can do this today, but obviously it requires a data foundation, but it's more also how easily available these data assets can become in a longer term.
That's an awesome vision, and definitely something that I think is super practical to be able to build out, like, those digital twin personas, and be able to just play around with that is super powerful information. Like you said, even if you're pessimistic and don't believe the information, it does give you more ideas. It gives you things to try out. And like in innovation, it's all about testing and learning, right? So it's like it gives you maybe 10 new ideas for you to test out to see which one actually is the better one to go with.
Yeah, I think that I read I think it was a Bezos quote. I think a quote where the idea was you should always be running 10 experiments, right? Knowing that maybe 9 will fail and one will go through. But the reality also is you're so nurtured, especially in retail, into here's what I did last year. Here's what I'm going to do, at least similar, if not maybe tweaked this year, because there's maybe some risk averseness also, but there's, and all that. There's also been a lot of market dynamics at play right now, right? If you looked at this initial stat we started with, 17 touch points to conversions, 5 seconds of attention, you have to try something different, right? You don't have a choice as a brand. So the question then becomes, how do I innovate differently? And the good news, like I said, is that the tool set around has become flexible enough to allow for such kind of experimentation where you don't even have to be a sophisticated data science machine, right? Which used to be the case even like 5 years ago. Like you needed to get those people, build these models, then figure out the next steps. You can get at least much further along today. And God knows, 6 months, it looks like we've kind of crossed an entire century. I don't know what the next 6 months is going to look like, right?
I know.
So how fast this is going to move. But, you have to take strides or you'll be left behind a lot, both on the vendor side also, by the way, and the brand side. Because I think on the vendor side as well, that we are seeing like, holy crap, we also have all this data. How do we make even more quicker sense of it beyond the basics of I made the text look easier to do, or the content kind of became easier to create. But I think that's like table stakes right now. It's more now, let's take the next step, right? Let's be in that Monday morning business meeting, human, talking together. What could that world look like? That augmentation could be very fascinating.
I totally agree. It sounds like a cool evolution and definitely a place where we need to go. Like you said, like you can't just say, what did we do last year and rinse and repeat. It's not going to work anymore. And it's definitely time to evolve. But Pratik, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's just inspiring to have you on and to look at some of the ways that you're evolving the industry and like taking things that are a quarter century old and evolving them is absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to see what's next for you and Netcore. And just thank you so much for being on. Anything that you want to leave the audience with before we end the episode today?
No, first of all, thanks, Matt, for having me. It was a great conversation, at least to riff on a few things. I think the only thing I would add is like, look, for your followers and also in general in retail, commerce, evolution is the path. And we all, like I said, vendors and brands and even the shopper, right? All of us are evolving, perhaps at different rates. Shoppers probably kind of gone another extreme, and we are playing a catch-up game, right, as brands and vendors. So the question almost is that, we have to innovate. And we have to kind of almost kind of buy into a little bit more of what's kind of happening in the world, especially with data and AI, and be more complementary on that sense. Start with, like I said, a little bit more of that pessimism perhaps, but try. I think if we don't try, it is going to be a very hard, winter ahead. It's already become a little crazy with, we had the COVID craziness, and then we had the shopper pessimism around how much they want to spend. And if we don't do more as a brand and also as a vendor supporting these brands and also shopper experiences, then we will be doing a disservice to us. So with an open mind going into and almost like planning into next year, as most retailers are right now beyond BFCM, this is a good moment to reflect and think, what can we do differently? And how can data and potentially AI on top of it help us?
Great ending to the episode. Thank you so much, Pratik. And hope to have you back on. We probably have another episode in 6 more months, and there'll be a whole nother thing we could talk about as far as where we're at because we're moving so fast.
Sounds good, man. This is
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Muller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.